Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm a CS major, and today I want to go through some email scams with you. I want to teach you one, how to spot them, and two, how to not be a victim. Unfortunately, it's the case that nowadays email scams are incredibly commonplace thanks to things like ChatGPT, AI LLMs. It's extremely cheap to make email scams, to distribute them, and unfortunately for people to get scammed. And it's not just, your grandma or elderly people. The reason why these scams are so common is because they work. So it's important to know how not to lose all your money. Yeah, so let's take a look at the first one. So this, no subject. If you get an email with no subject, I mean, already that's a little suspicious, but, let's look a little bit more deep into, what they're asking us to do. It's from Pachella Durellum. I don't recognize that name. These are weird names. I don't know what they're up to. But they're so kind, they left an attachment, right? Okay, so, let's see what the attachment's all about. So let's have a look-see here. So I opened the attachment. Here's a screenshot of that. What do you know? It's from a reputable company. It's from Geek Squad. But, let's look a little deeper again, right? So we see here the file name. Okay, so this is already a red flag. Anyone who uses exclamation points like this to name a file is a degenerate or a scammer. So, let's assume they're just a little odd, but let's see how they're a scammer here, right? Okay, so it says, Dear subscriber, your Geek Squad subscription will renew today, and $349.999 will soon be taken out of your account. The total amount will appear on your account statement in the next 24 hours. Okay, so here, what is happening here? It's creating a sense of urgency. It's very clear, right? Huge sum of money. I don't have a job. I can't afford this. And the next 24 hours, that creates a sense of urgency, okay? And that's something that it doesn't inherently show something's a scam, but I will say that lots of scams will use this kind of tactic. It's known as social engineering. Basically, quote-unquote, gaming people, for example, creating that sense of urgency so that you immediately want to find out how to fix it. And let's see how they want us to fix it. It says, please get in touch with our billing department as soon as you can if you believe this was an unauthorized transaction or if you want to cancel your subscription. How nice. Okay, so let's take a look, right? Oh, okay. Nice, right? $349.99. And they want us to call at this number. Okay, so some things to think about right now. Okay, one, these fonts are very strange. You can see how, like, this one right here, quantity, 3-year subscription, it's like very squished, right? Official companies, no competent official company, that is, will have, like, different fonts. You can see we got, like, Calibri here, I'd like to say, and like this font just doesn't look the same. Like it's very uneven. If the formatting looks very janky, chances are it's a scam. Especially when we go over, what I mentioned earlier about that urgency and just like egregious amounts of money within a short time period. So that's a warning flag. Now, Geek Squad is an actual company. Like I said, that's actually completely true. But that's what they'll do, right? It's very simple to pose as someone, to be an imposter simply, just by slapping on the logo of the company. So do not implicitly trust any email just because it has some official marking on it. Okay, so that's the first most important lesson. Do not believe what people say they are. Never just trust implicitly. Never do that. Okay, now let's take a look at the second scam. Okay, so this one is actually from an interesting source, my university. Okay, it's from this wonderful man named Chad Converse. Okay, so he says, attention, I am sharing job information with students and workers who might be interested, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that catches my eye. It's a job that offers 500 USD weekly. That's pretty good money if I do say so myself. But, okay, so here's another thing. The typo, right? Typos do not inherently mean it's a scam. People make typos all the time. But it's something to be a little wary about, especially when you're given a job offer from someone you've never heard from. I don't know Chad. And, there's lots of people I don't know. But let's keep reading, right? Understanding whether something is a scam or not involves a lot of reading comprehension. Very important. Lots of scams actually intentionally don't care about trying. They're filtering out people who won't recognize these small things, like elderly people, for example. That's why they're the most vulnerable. Simply because they don't notice these, blatant, for example, grammatical errors or typos or, just lack of formatting whatsoever, really. They might not notice that. And these emails are actually, in a way, directly filtering for that vulnerable demographic, filtering out people who would notice it, like you and I, younger people who know things are scams, while appealing, or not appealing, but more, being more targeted towards people who don't notice these kinds of details. So always be vigilant. Be very detail-oriented when reading emails like this to determine if they're scams. Okay, so you have received this email because you have an offer from blah, blah, blah. Dr. Rachel B. Flynn could not meet for an interview because she is currently away helping disabled students in Italy. Okay, I'm sure Rachel B. Flynn is away helping disabled students in Italy. I'm sure she is. That's great. Okay, she'll be returning to the USA, which is scheduled for next weekend. Yeah, okay, and I'm not going to read all this, but here's another important part. Let's look down here. It says, if you are interested, and for more information, I want this job. I do want more information, right? Well, how nice. He provided some kind contact to Dr. Rachel B. Flynn with my alternative email address, Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, etc. Do not contact with your EDU email address. Why is he saying that? Pretty simple. They don't want the university to flag this as what it is, a scam. Okay? There are legitimate reasons, of course, for people asking you to do your job applications with your personal email as opposed to your school email. But in this case, the reason why it's asked is so that way they'll be safe from the university IT and cybersecurity, blah, 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 right? Basically, it's isolating you from that system to get your money. So that's a very clever kind of way to get away with this kind of thing. Okay. So yeah, and the problem with this scam, okay, is I'll actually pull up. This wasn't so this is from my inbox. Okay, I received this email. But in my university system, there's actually some other people who have received very similar kind of emails. Okay, so here's one from Reddit. And it kind of describes exactly what we've just been talking about. Scam job emails spoofing at Northeastern. Okay, so spoofing is what we discussed in the first email. Okay, that's saying I am an official authority figure for XYZ company, even when you're not. You're basically lying about your identity. That is what spoofing is. Okay, and the problem is that it can be really difficult to identify a scam when someone says, they're in that position of authority. What I mean by that is, in this specific example, this is the name of an actual faculty member. Just by looking at, who sent it alone is not sufficient. Make sure you remember this. It's not sufficient to look at who sent it as an indication of whether it's a scam or not. Okay? Because it's completely possible to spoof your identity. Okay? This person, I think, actually happens to be a person who works for Northeastern University. But, an attacker, a scam artist, spoof their identity to assume this person's identity in giving this fake scam job posting. Okay? So that's a very important lesson. Okay? You never want to just look at, oh yeah, I know this person, or oh yeah, this person works for, this company. No. It's very tricky, of course, to, find that out. But again, focus on the content of the email. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't make sense, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. That's really just the best rule of thumb. So yeah, you can see some other people. And there actually have been several students. I know my roommate actually was referred to one of these scam emails by his own teacher, his own professor. So yeah, no one's really exempt in falling for these kinds of emails. You got to be very, very careful. And again, like I said, with ChatGPT, these things can be automated so easily to be realistic, to just mass mail and cause the most damage to people as possible. So yeah, very important to be careful. Okay, and the third thing I'd like to show you, okay, would be this one. Okay, and this is from my high school, so quite a few years ago. But here we go. Host FUHSD students high school rally. Great. Uh-oh. I'm sure you noticed the big yellow box. Be careful with this message. He's similar to a name in your organization, but the email address does not belong to your domain of my high school. They can't verify. Avoid replying, and there's even a report phishing button and a look safe button. Is this a scam? What do you think? This is a question for you. The answer is actually no. Okay, I threw a curveball at you there. This is actually not a scam. Why did I bring this up? It's to show the point that it's very, very difficult to identify scams. Okay. And I know the whole point of the video is how to identify them, okay? But even if you know what you're doing, it's still difficult to tell, okay? The way I found out this was not a scam was actually not me doing it. I asked my friend to. He opened the form you can see down here, the URL. It linked to a legitimate form, okay? Now, for a scammer, if they link an external form, oftentimes they'll be probing for more personal details. What's your phone number? What's your email address? Sometimes they'll be really explicit. I remember for the Northeastern University scam emails, some straight up asked, like, what's your credit card number or SSN? Just like real personal stuff you shouldn't be telling anyone, okay? So it's very, it's very obvious in those scenarios when it links to an external form that it's a scam, okay? So what I'm trying to show you here is that false positives do happen with scams. However, it's better to be safe than sorry. It's better to have something be flagged as a scam when it's not than something to not be flagged, but it is a scam and it causes real damage. Okay, and that applies to pretty much anything. The medical field, for example. Better to have a false positive that you have cancer than a false negative, you have cancer, but it's not screened. That's no good. Okay. But the reason I threw this in here is to just show the point. Sometimes it can be the opposite, and that can be kind of problematic in the sense that sometimes legitimate emails, this is actually from my principal or vice principal, sometimes legitimate emails can get flagged as scams even though they're not. Other times, quite a few times actually, like for example, the one I showed you over here is Scam 2, right? Lots of times, scams like this are not flagged as scams, okay? My point is this. The best defense against these scams, okay, is not necessarily your software, okay? It's not necessarily a yellow text box like you saw earlier saying, this is a scam, report phishing. No, it's you, okay? So if you apply the tips that I've taught you, okay, making sure things are consistent, no blatant typos, not too good to be true, it simplifies it a whole lot, okay? And you'll be able to reasonably identify, what's good and what's not, okay? So that'll be it. Thank you for watching. I hope you don't get scammed. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.